start over as adult immigrants who chose to immigrate to the U.S. and continue thriving professionally. You'll see in the next 30 minutes. Hi, welcome to You Belong Here, the place to be for positive stories of immigrant women from all around the world. I'm Portia Chan Silverberg. I was made in Taiwan. This show is brought to you by You Belong Here Foundation, which is committed to ignite meaningful conversations and deepen compassion in our community. You're about to hear from inspiring women sharing their successes, challenges, and how they are living meaningful American dreams. Stay a while to pick up some useful tips on how you too can live your own American dream. Today, you will meet Cecilia Hamilton and Jennifer Kinney. Cecilia, a former lawyer, now a naturopathic doctor and a full-time artist, is passionate about creating fine art to share with collectors and to collaborate with nonprofits to fundraise for worthy causes. Cecilia moved here from Belgium after traveling in Europe and Asia. Jennifer is a thought leader in human innovation and gender balance for innovation. She's author of the upcoming book, Catalyzing Innovation: Why Understanding the Language of Women's Leadership Can Increase Your Innovation Capacity. Jennifer was born in Ireland. Ladies, welcome. We've already been having so much fun talking about leadership, immigrants, all of these wonderful things that I know both of you are shining examples of. Immigrants are so undervalued, I think, in our community, and especially in the last few years, I feel like. And I know it's just so important to hear from women from all around the world, and especially women. I deliberately invited both of you today because I wanted to have women on the show who don't look like the stereotypical immigrants, right? I mean, if someone were to look at you, Jennifer, or you, Cecilia, I don't think they would automatically think, oh, here's an immigrant. So I would love to hear about your journey from Ireland and Belgium, because both of you came as adults, which is not easy to start all over and not only survive, but actually thrive, right? So let's hear from you, Jennifer.
Well, I came here when I was 25. I didn't consider myself an adult.
Okay, young adult?
Yes, young adult, probably. So I came here when I was 25, but mostly I came here because of the freedom and the opportunity. So I came from an Ireland that at that time was very, was repressed in certain ways, and economically was just beginning to kind of stand itself up. And patience is not one of my better virtues. So the opportunity to be able to move faster in America and have more opportunities was very appealing to me. And also the opportunity to be able to pretty much invent my own life without people tut-tutting me or, you know, supervising me in any way, I also loved. So freedom and opportunity were really the main things that sort of brought me here. And America has more than delivered on both of those.
Wow, that is fantastic. And Cecilia, tell us about your journey. I mean, lawyer, now
I can
artist.
say for me it was more a little bit of an accident. Is the first time I arrived in the United States was when I was a very young artist and I was invited for a fundraising show in New Jersey. And it went very well. And I was just a young artist, had my first full-on show in Belgium, and I thought, really, this is way too easy. And so I went back to Europe and pursued my career there. And then many years later, I was in Thailand, and it's a story of love. I met my husband, and we had to then decide whether to live in Europe somewhere or in America. And he spoke only English and had lived his whole life here other than in Asia. And so we decided to come to the United States. And since I came and saw everything through the prism of art, it was a little bit of different experience, and I fitted right in from that. Except my English was really not good, but other than that, I fitted right in, and so it was a nice experience.
Which
and
is hard
America
to
has
imagine.
delivered indeed.
Oh, isn't that nice? And I love America too. I just feel like there's such a great spirit of generosity and entrepreneurship, freedom, independence, and that's what this is all about, right? And I think in your line of work, innovation, leadership, what was it, equal gender leadership?
Gender balance.
Gender balance leadership.
Yeah.
I love that. I think being an immigrant maybe has its advantages, do you think?
I think it does. I think that you don't know what the rules are, so you tend to maybe give yourself more permission to break the ones that you don't even know exist.
Right.
I think it does give you a certain amount of freedom. I think it also gives you a certain amount of curiosity, so you tend to question a lot and ask more questions. And you know, you're driving for more understanding all the time. So it gives you, for me at least, I've got endless curiosity. So it gave me, you know, lots of opportunity to be able to inquire and ask and try to understand better, which really served what it is that I do. So that was a big plus. And people are always happy to help you because you're not from here. So they're going out of their way to try and go, oh, well, you're making an effort to try and understand us, so we want to help you do that, which I've always found was wonderful. Americans are very generous in that way. It's like, you want to understand us? Oh, you want to understand us? Great, let me help you.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is good.
And I find that you actually share a similar spirit of curiosity and openness and creativity, right? You just create in different ways.
Yeah.
So I actually would like to pose a question that if someone was watching who is also an immigrant, who is also very creative, which is why that brought them here to the U.S., do you have any particular suggestion for maybe also an adult who came not as a child, who was able to pick up things maybe quicker, but you know, some suggestions for someone who is starting over?
My biggest one is, and it took me a while to figure this out actually, and I think if you're coming as an adult a little bit later, you've got more to give. The most effective way to engage with people is to give in order to receive. You're not going to be given things just because you happen to be there. I mean, some people will be generous and that's lovely, but I think the idea of reciprocity is very important, particularly from a networking standpoint.
Right.
As you say, an older adult, you've been through your education process, you have some experience under your belt, you already have something to contribute.
Right.
You get in there and contribute that and learn from that process and be valued and appreciated for that. And then things come back to you many-fold.
Right. And that's a great thing to do as a human anyway.
Exactly.
Right? To give and then not actually necessarily expecting to receive anything in return. In fact, that's why I always promote volunteerism, because not only does it feel good to give, it's actually a great networking tool, right?
Exactly.
So I want to maybe look at some pictures, and you can maybe tell us what they're about. And so maybe you can tell us why in the world, or how in the world did you get in the picture? So this one is not with the president, but go ahead, tell us a little bit about that.
So one of the wonderful things about being Irish in San Francisco is there are quite a number of us, but there are a lot of us who work in Silicon Valley. And so the Irish Consulate and the Irish Consul General have make a very particular effort of bringing Irish people together anytime there's a visiting dignitary from Ireland, which is a huge gift. It's wonderful. And so Mary Robinson, was Ireland's first lady president and who I am still super proud of, she was over visiting and she asked to get together a lot of women leaders in Silicon Valley. And so she brought us all together and she had a beautiful dinner with us. There were only about 20, 25 of us, a beautiful dinner with her. And she has been a role model for not just my generation, but for the generation after me and the generation after me again. And so it was just a wonderful experience. And you know, she's been First Lady President of Ireland, but she's also been head of human rights in the UN. And so she's done some incredible things, and her focus now is climate change. So it was wonderful, really wonderful. Yeah.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Cecilia, as an artist, you just have all kinds of great visuals, I know. And I know you have a great Instagram account that I am going to start following. So do you maybe would like to comment on this picture here?
Well, we were talking about my first arrival in the United States, and actually this was, if we can read it, it was the first fundraising show for, the cause was women and children addicted to drugs and alcohol, and it was extremely successful, and it was heartwarming. It was the first fundraising I did, and after that, I actually embarked on fundraising as being part of my art career. In other words, I was a gallery artist for most of the time, but then the missing part in my heart was a year where I wouldn't have a fundraising event.
Oh,
in my case, because I worked in the environmental department in Strasbourg in the European Council, I became a lifetime member of the World Wildlife Fund. It was always around one topic, which was the tropical rainforest. And so right now I'm reevaluating my career to be primarily focused on fundraising with art.
Which I love, because one thing I know, and my passion is nonprofits in this world, right, in this country. And the charity or nonprofit sector in this country is second next to none in the world. It is a vibrant industry with so many people dedicating their lives to working for the greater good. And there's so many different types of nonprofits that I find that many immigrants actually don't know about nonprofits, right? Because where they're from, maybe they don't have such a thriving nonprofit industry, or they don't trust the nonprofits not to be scamming the money, or lots and lots of reasons, right? So I find that anytime we can showcase women who are giving back, especially amazingly qualified, intelligent, successful immigrant women, to really showcase how you are making a difference, that's just a bonus, right? Because there might be people watching who say, you know what, I'm really successful, or I'm in a place in my life that I'd like to give back. I want to have something bigger than me, but how do I get started? What do I do? If you Google nonprofits, there are so many, right? It's just so hard to know which cause to dedicate yourself to. So I love the idea that you're using your passion and your vocation as a way to help nonprofits. And I think it would be really phenomenal to maybe help you find local nonprofits or smaller ones that don't have the name recognition as the World Wildlife Fund, right? And then help smaller nonprofits.
Small and big are good. Small are good to draw the attention. Big are good to draw the attention. Small ones are really filling the heart.
Yes.
And because the results are immediate and it boosts whatever their goals are. So there's really room for both in my experience.
Yes. What about you, Jennifer? I know you've been in the world of leadership and technology innovation for so long. What warms your heart? What kind of causes do you have?
Well, so I've been chair of the board of the Global Women's Leadership Network. So women's leadership always, because I think that a gender balanced world would be a much better world for all of us.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think it actually, I'm pretty positive. So that has been a primary focus. And then I also tend to do work around children, because I think that if we can educate children and provide good homes for them early on, we solve a lot of our later down the road problems. So I've done work with child advocacy, and I usually do work for 1 or 2 not-for-profits a year as a specific focus.
And how did you pick the nonprofits, though?
I pick the ones I care about.
Okay.
I pick the things that matter to me, and then all you have to do is put your hand up.
Right.
I mean, people are very, if you understand how you add value and you're clear on it, and you're clear on what you can offer.
Right? How you add value.
Yeah.
You're adding value by offering beautiful fine art. You're offering value with your leadership skills and all your experience in the business world.
Yeah,
right?
or teaching people how to be leaders inside the not-for-profits, or helping them with their strategy. And I think if you're clear on where you add value, then you just put your hand up and say, I can do this, this, and this. And there are plenty of people who are very willing and happy to have you help them. And I think also some of it is you've got to make sure it's a good fit for you. And if you don't care about it, then don't do it.
Right.
Yes, and I like what you said. You'll feel your causes.
Yeah.
They just come to you, and some resonate, some don't.
Right.
But you just be out there and be yourself.
Yeah.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can go wrong then, other than the worst thing that can happen is a no or a lack of interest.
Right.
And
or too much work.
Or too much work, which is very possible when you care about
when there is
the
24 hours in the day.
I know.
Indeed.
It's that's one hack we haven't figured out.
Right.
How do we have more time in a day? But I think you touched on be yourself, be authentic. That's actually one of the tips I think you had in learning how to fit in, how to feel a sense of belonging, how to be a very feel at home and be an American, immigrant American who actually is adding value and fitting into the local society, right?
Yes.
Is to really be yourself.
Yes, indeed. And Europe is much more formal. And so both the East Coast is a little bit more stiff upper lip. So when I first came to the West Coast, it was really interesting, the spontaneity and the fact that I always say I'm a hug bear, but it's just that spontaneity of relationships. Which naturally in my native countries or in Europe, I didn't find the same way. They're loosening up a little bit, but here it left for that, but an expression of being more authentic and be oneself, I thought, and spontaneous. It's really my nature. So
that's so beautiful.
That's something I would like to pass on to everybody and everyone who moves here.
And when you said to give in order to receive, that's also a little bit of getting out of your comfort zone. And I've had other guests who say, they really recommend immigrants, especially the ones maybe more introverted or come from cultures where they feel like they should be more kind of stick with their own and not go out too much. I think one advice is actually to really get out there, even if you just talk to your neighbor, right? Just make friends wherever you are and be willing to share about what your culture is like or what you're about and be yourself. I think that actually is really good advice.
Yeah,
and
I think people
more
are
than
really
ever.
Yeah, more than ever. Yeah,
Right.
agreed. And I think people are curious.
Yes.
They want to know.
Right.
Most people want to know.
Most people want to know. But as a white woman, do you think you feel like there's anything that you had to overcome as an immigrant, or maybe with an accent, or although you have a really great accent, so I don't think people actually question you on that.
Yeah, I think it was particularly easy for me in that I had lived in England before, and when I came over here, people were, "Oh, you're Irish, that's wonderful," and I was used to hiding that. So it was a lot easier for me here, surprisingly easy for me here, and I've always felt welcomed and appreciated here, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And then being white, I mean, there's just privilege all over the place.
Right.
I think being aware of that and recognizing that, and I feel more in common with fellow immigrants than I would necessarily feel with Americans.
Wow.
Because they've been through a similar experience.
Exactly.
But they look at me and they don't expect that because I look like an American.
Right. Right.
So you're in this sort of in-between place.
Right.
That's
Which
fine.
is interesting.
Yeah.
And I do think we share some similar adjustment, right? And assimilation or acclimation to the local society. So, to live a fulfilling life as an immigrant American, I think it's so important to be able to speak English and speak it fluently as much as possible, right? Sometimes it's harder when you come as an adult, but still there's certain things we can do to strengthen our ability to speak English. So Cecilia, I know you have a great tip for us.
Yes, and a beautiful adventure, because after 1 year of listening to commercial radio when we settled in Boulder, I was lost. I didn't understand, and I picked up a lot of bad words. Then I dialed into an NPR station and discovered PBS, and that's where the pleasure of the English language came upon me. And then later on, I was blessed to do a bachelor and a master's and a PhD, and then the writing and reading skills were enhanced. So it was, yes, it was a beautiful experience.
Right. So, you know, we can just tell everyone, go out and get a master's and a PhD. You will learn English. No, aside from that, PBS is a very easy way to learn. NPR, PBS, and I know you, as a former PBS employee, I love PBS stations, and I love the children's programs. I love Sesame Street because they're so intentional in teaching kids on how to speak English or just English, right? So that's a great foundation to build on. So I think that's a great tip, PBS, NPR. And we know you came as someone who was already English speaking, so maybe you have other tips and suggestions, maybe?
Well, my father used to always say that the English did us an incredible service when they made us speak their language. So yes, I did come speaking English, so that made it a lot easier for me. But I think for people it's very important to allow people to be confused by your accent and not take it personally. I think people tend to get frustrated when they can't understand someone else.
Right.
And so they speak louder or they ask you to repeat yourself again or whatever. But I think that's just part of human beings trying to understand each other.
Right.
And I think not taking that personally is really important.
I love that tip. Yeah. You're right, because I know a lot of immigrant women in particular who won't speak up in meetings because they're so self-conscious of their English. They say, well, I can't, you know, raise my hand because I have an accent. I don't want to speak in front of a group. And then they miss out on leadership opportunities, right? So that is a great tip, not to take it personally. And the other one we have is watch public television, listening to NPR, and get out there and give, volunteer, and really find your own strength, identify your strength, and then make it a part of your offering to our local community. So you know, I'm just so sad that we have to wrap up soon, but I know that both of you have been here long enough. You are newer than Jennifer, but you're both now citizens. Congratulations. It's great to be American citizens. So I don't know if that automatically means as a citizen you feel like you belong here. So I would love for you to complete a sentence for me that I finally feel like I belong here. When?
For me, it was when I became a citizen. It was something that I can't exactly define in words. It was a very overwhelming feeling. The whole process was. And it took a long time to decide to become a citizen. But
when you became a citizen,
I became
Jennifer?
a citizen, yeah.
I think when I voted, for me that was really important. It's the having a voice and knowing what matters to you in terms of who represents your values, and then supporting those values actively in the community and recognizing that other people allow you to do that and are comfortable with you doing that. That was really important for me.
I love that. Yes. Well, thank you both so much. I think we got some great tips.
Yeah.
And now Cecilia, Jennifer, and I would love to hear from you. We talked about so many interesting things today. What's one thing that resonated with you, and what actions are you inspired to take? Please share your story. You Belong Here was brought to you by You Belong Here Foundation that comes to you from Palo Alto, California, and we are dedicated to infuse a plethora of positive stories of immigrant women, ignite meaningful conversations, and deepen compassion in our community. I am Portia Chen Silverberg. Thank you for watching, and remember, you deserve to be seen, be heard, and belong. You belong here.
Cause what you got inside is the same as all your plethora. Do you see yourself in the troubled and the homeless. Can you say everywhere you are is where your home is? Sharing your heart in the dark just like a lotus, letting your light shine bright so you can float it. Everlasting love of grace like those did Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, Buddha, and Moses, who carried the weight of the world upon their shoulders. So every time you fall down, go ahead and hold this close to your heart, cause you're a love soldier. And every time you get a chance, you pay it forward. Moving closer to heaven's gates, we're all soaring. Because of you, love is where we're headed towards.